Welcome back to My Harlem Portraits, the show that aims at shedding a light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and on Black excellence. To talk about the epitome of Black excellence today, we are gonna discuss the movie Following Harry, having world premiere at TRIBECA Festival with the director, the amazing director of this movie, Susanne Rostock. Welcome to My Harlem Portrait, Ms.
Thank you.
Rostock.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are an enlightened filmmaker because this is an historical piece of art that will be a testament for future generations to come. So I thank you for what you've been doing.
Well, thank you for saying that, because the intention was exactly that, to document this arc of history and have it go forward into the future, because there's so little awareness of consequence and how history impacts the present and the future. And it really, I have a young daughter, she's 28, and when I started making this film, it was really to create a blueprint for her generation and the generations to follow, so that they know what came before, and they know how to use it instead of reinventing the wheel every time a crisis comes, to start building. And Harry's voice is the clearest, most radical, loving perspective on humanity, and he talks in a way that goes straight to your heart and your mind, and he gets you up out of your chair, and he might not give you the exact what you should do. He makes you look for it yourself, and that was the impetus.
And
I'm
you
glad
you definitely made it. That's what I felt watching this movie, crying through it all the time. So Following Harry tells the extraordinary story of Mr. Harry Belafonte during the last 12 years of his life. But it is not the first movie you made about Mr. B. You made Sing Your Song that covers his life from 1927 to 2010. So what has compelled you to take the challenge of this next chapter about Mr. B?
Well, when I finished Sing Your Song, at the end of the song, at the end of the film, which is a song in a way, Harry asks, "What do you do now?" And that was a question that had no answer to it. It was, "What do you do now?" It just sets you out there. And at the same time that I finished that film, Harry invited me to share an office with him. And so that put me right into the center of his everyday life, really. And he also lives just a few blocks away from me. And so we would be in each other's life all the time. And that gave me incredible access and an incredible opportunity to witness his thinking. And at the end of one day in our office, Harry came into my cutting room, and he sat down, and his eyes filled with tears, and he said, "There's so much work to do. I'm running out of time. What do I do? What do I do?" And I said, "Well, you do what you do. Can I film you doing it?" Because we had our office always had this steady stream of people coming in and out, all kinds of activists and artists and politicians, and you name it. They were in and out, in and out. And so looking to Harry for guidance. And so I thought I'd start filming his guidance. And at first I thought, well, let's just do a series with all these people as they come into your office, just sit at the end of our long dining table in our big loft space, and call it Ruminations. And Ruminations, a postcard to the future, something like that, and let's just start filming those conversations. So that's what I started doing that. And then Trayvon Martin was murdered. And that changed everything, because then you couldn't just sit and ruminate. You had to do more. And so that's what Harry did. And so he was invited to join the Dream Defenders. And as you see in the film, goes down to Florida to join them in their sit-in in the government in the Capitol, and to fight Stand Your Ground, which was the law that got Zimmerman proven innocent or not guilty
That,
of murder. Yeah,
that,
not guilty. And so that was a very seminal point in time. And so I just kept on filming, and I got to know a lot of these activists very well. I concurrent with that, I was making a film with Gina called Another Night in the Free World. We were producing it together. I was directing it, and we were given money by HBO to follow three young women activists, uh, and
yeah.
to follow them over time, over a long arc of time, to see how that activism, how they tried and succeeded and failed, and the effect on their personal lives, and just a real woman's story, because nobody was documenting. All through history, nobody was documenting what women were doing in all these movements, and women were the heart of these movements. And they did not wear the suits and ties. They were behind the scenes just fighting and creating. And so I wanted to be sure that that got captured in my lifetime going forward. So some of those activist women, Tenjiwa McHarris, Carmen Perez, and Tynesha McHarris were the centerpieces. And that brought me into a whole other group of women and men, young men activists. So a lot of that filming is in Following Harry. The filming I was doing for that appears in Following Harry as well, because it was all happening at the same time. So
You were
that's,
doing, my God, what a job. All
yeah,
the recording all this for two different movies for like figures like Harry Belafonte. I mean,
yeah.
he has changed the
Well,
world.
yeah.
And your film opens up with a powerful scene where you see Mr. Belafonte in a way I've never seen him before. Because I'm used to see him fighting and powerful and this. You show us him in a moment in which is disheartened in a sense, is pensive, he's worried, and he says something that really, really stuck with me. He says, what was that time wasted? How did we come up with these results? And then he says also, what has the enemy become? Or has he always been like this and we did not understand it? I don't even know anymore who I am. Is disheartened. And this brings him to do what you show in the movie, which is really being a bridge between the young generation and the history that comes before them, like you were saying in the beginning, and give them the power to build on that history, knowing what has happened before. And you show it so beautifully in this movie. He also goes up, another phrase he says, the truth is the enemy does not sleep. And the civil rights movement never ended, just took a deep breath. Because now we are back in a moment in which the Supreme Court has taken us back 50, 60 years in our rights. So tell me a little bit about, for example, I'm following your movie and I took up some points that I wanted to talk about with you. During the 2013 NAACP award, he made an amazing speech. Tell us a little bit about that speech that really changed many people's lives and way of doing things.
Well, Harry got up there, and instead of just graciously thanking everyone for the award, he lambasted the Black community. all the activists, the artists, really, the artists who had the power, who were not using their power of celebrity to make a difference, and he said, where are you? The streets of our cities are running. It makes me cry to say, with the blood of our children. What are you doing? Where is the church? Are we being, can we be accused of treason for not standing up for our people? And he was so strong. He was relentless, and it was a beautiful, beautiful speech. I only use a part of it, but you can see in just the section I have with Jamie Foxx, how Jamie Foxx was affected by it and was taken by surprise, and how that changed some of the way he was living his life. And so he just, Harry, unlike anyone else I know, I think Malcolm would do that way back, but Harry now is the only one who stands up and says these things, and says them, but they come from a place of love, not recrimination, and it's like just shaking their shoulders, come on, wake up, you have to do something, use what you have, how dare you not use it. It was a brave and bold moment, incredible moment in time that did turn some of the tables, some of the tide with some people. It was effective.
Yes, it was effective. It was amazing. I had not heard it before, and I then went to look for it and hear the whole thing, because it's just the most powerful speech I've heard, especially during one of those awards moment.
Yeah.
And in another moment, after Chuck D spoke, he says, we don't have control of the press and those who feed us what the points of view that we should have. How do we inform our community? That was his main message. We have to inform our community, and we have to lead our community, because we have the tools, being people that are powerful, well-known, and celebrities. So talk a little bit about that with Rosario Dawson's, and then we do this, he does this concert, We Are the World. It gets in contact with different musicians and famous people, Quincy Jones and so on, all that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that meeting that you referred to with Chuck D was actually in 2012. That was a long time ago. And that was in response to Trayvon. And that was in response to Harry creating Sankofa with his daughter, Gina Belafonte. And the idea was to harness the power of celebrity to get artists to do things, to really do things. And that's why We Are the World comes up in there. We Are the World is also in Sing Your Song, but We Are the World comes up there to show that a song, as simple as a song, can change what was going on in Ethiopia, that could sort of stall some of the starvation. It did have a big effect, and that was done by artists. And Harry often uses the quote, "Artists are the gatekeepers of truth. We are civilization's radical voice." And it's only recently, because Harry always attributes it to Paul Robeson, but it's only recently that it was shared with me that it was Harry's quote, his own quote. But he attributed it to Paul Robeson all those years ago because he thought it would give it more heft.
Yes.
But as if he couldn't give something enough heft. So exactly. So that's but that meeting was the beginning of the Sankofa movement, and prior to that, he had created the Gathering for Justice, yes, which was to organize activists, and Carmen Perez heads that organization. And these are the two wings of his activism.
Another moment which was really strong in your movie, where Mr. B says, last time I spoke with Dr. King, it was in an anguished place of fear. What have we done? Maybe we are integrating into a burning house. And then he says, what do we have to do then? And he says, we have to become firemen.
Yeah, Dr. King's answer was, we have to become firemen. Yeah.
This is amazing. It was, I mean, I was really moved. Tell me more about this feeling that Mr. B had about us being in a moment in which there is a moral collapse of those who can really take the baton and do more with the powerful voices that we have. Like, for example, when Rod Stars and Mike Brown and Purvishan, they are talking about Ferguson and what happened in Ferguson and the movement that brought about. And Harry says, we went through, Ferguson reminds me of when we went through Montgomery.
Right. Especially with Rosa Parks getting on the bus and how that triggered what that triggered.
Yes.
Well, you know, Harry is trying to help them understand that, and he repeats it throughout the film. This has happened before.
Yes.
We have been here before, and we will be here. And he says this a number of times, we will be here again. And so what are we going to do to make that different, to break that cycle? And he's still trying to work it out. I mean, even in his physical absence now, he's still trying to work that out. What do we do? What do we do? How do we break that? What's the plan? Because it's one thing, and it's important to demonstrate. It's important to stand up nonviolently. He was a huge proponent, and you see in the film that I have a wonderful section on nonviolence, because people forget about that. The power of nonviolence. I mean, one of the Steve Parget, one of the activists, said that I always thought nonviolence was the easy way. And he said, but it's hard. It's so much harder to be nonviolent. It's not your instinct. It's so much harder. And in that session, Kazu Haga says, you know, hurt people hurt people. You have to remember that hurt people, and somewhere deep inside everyone is that kindness and that goodness, and it's our job to speak to that. Because I often would ask Harry, you know, so how do we reach the other side? How do we reach across that horrible, horrible divide? And he said that, you know, it's not until we see our commonality. We have to see our common humanness. You know, the hearts and minds of each of us have to be touched, and that's very, in these days, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to do. But yeah,
especially with the people who are on the other side right now, that don't seem to be very reasonable.
No, they're not listening. But there are ways of breaking through, because I mean, if I can cite a little tiny example that's related to Harry, because it's in the other film I'm working on about the women activists. But there was an amazing woman journalist in Mexico who wrote an expose, Lydia Cacho. You probably know her. An amazing expose of a trafficking ring, a child trafficking ring in a Mexican town. And the mayor was the head of it, and so she exposed him, and then she disappeared for almost a year. She disappeared, and then she was found near death on a beach. And it turned out that she spoke every day to her captors as they were beating her and raping her. And she kept on speaking to them as human beings, as their mothers, but their mothers, their children, their wives. They just kept on talking and talking through all the beatings until she finally broke through. She broke through to one of them, and he helped her escape. And so that's such an extreme example.
Yeah,
but
tells you.
Yeah, it tells you everything. And Kerry Kennedy tells you that with Gloria Steinem and Dolores Huerta, you know, their divide on abortion and how Gloria just kept at it for years and years and years and decades until finally Dolores understood that pro-choice was the way to go. But you know, she never gave up, and they were very, very close friends. So it's there's so many different ways to work this, and the point I think is that we each individually have to find our way, and even if it's just with one person, you know, if 100 million people change one person each.
Strange. And this episode with Carrie Kennedy, you show it very well in the movie when Mr. B goes and see her in her office, in her home. You talk also about some other important moments, the Stir It Up concerts in Atlanta on the eve of the 2016 elections. The Women March, where I was, and that was incredible on 2017. Tell us a little bit about these two important moments.
Well, the Many Rivers to Cross event in Atlanta was a dream child of Harry's, and so Gina and Sankofa took it on to create a 3-day event in Atlanta in a big field at a horse farm where many very famous musicians came to perform, and many activists from all over came to speak, and a lot of stages were set up, and Angela Davis, who is so remarkable in that moment, talks about the because I don't use the music in my film. I'm not really dealing with the amazing music that was performed. I wanted to get to the point, which was about voting. And Angela Davis gets up in October, 2 months before, well, a month before the November election, and she says, you know, I'm not going to tell you not to vote. You have to vote. We'll have our revolution after, but if you don't vote, you have no idea what you're going to unleash. Well, the people were not listening to her. They were not listening. There was a rumble. There was a rumble in there that was almost like a boo because they didn't want to vote for Hillary. And and the idea, the thinking was, well, we'll get Trump in, and the country will rise up. They'll be so outraged, they'll rise up. And Angela was saying, no, that's not how it works. You know, I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from history. That's not how it works. And so she exemplifies to me, as does Harry, the importance of listening to our elders. I mean, I'm now an elder myself, but not as elders they are. So listening to your elders, learn from history as we go back to the beginning of what we talked about. Learn from that, pay attention, you know, and I don't know, we're in the same place now. We're in the same place now.
Even worse, if anything.
Well, even worse, yeah.
In our lifetime, I think this is the most difficult moment because in Europe, we didn't have wars for 50 years thanks to the European.
Right.
So this was, this movie is pivotal. You are addressing and recording a lifetime of achievements, but also of indication by Harry Belafonte on where we are going and what we need to do and how we need to do. Because he's an activist, he's an artivist, as Gina would say. He's an artist. And we come to February 2018 with the Parkland shooting. And all the students, starting high school students, demonstrating and going to Washington. And they want to meet Mr. Harry Belafonte. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did not know that they were coming to the office. I wasn't there that day, so I have to say I was so upset. And I finally got a hold of some footage, phone footage, very little phone footage, and some stills that Pam, Harry's wife, shot some stills, and Brian Satz recorded some sound footage. So I couldn't believe I wasn't there for that. But I befriended a little bit after the fact Matt Post, because Harry just loved Matt Post, and as you see in the film, he's just so deeply insightful and intelligent. And I love his story because it's not the usual Parkland story, which is a horrendous story. But Matt Post was living. He wasn't in Parkland. He wasn't even in that state. But he was in high school, and he was so sickened by what happened when he saw it on the television that he immediately organized his high school to do a walkout, and other high schools started doing that, and high schools from all over the country marched to Washington to confront the government on what was going on for gun control. And the Parkland students saw his speech that he gave in front of the Capitol and invited him to come and help organize their movement. And so when by the time they got to Harry's office, the March for Your Life movement had begun, and they were also visiting towns and campuses all over the country, fighting for gun control and fighting to get out the vote. But when they got to Harry, they were exhausted. The press was no longer interested in them, and they had lost heart. And what he gave them was so much strength and so much hope to go on that they did. And so that was, one of his many gifts was that, to really
Be able.
give you a blood transfusion, basically, of hope.
Mhm.
So, but then Kyle Rittenhouse happened
Yeah.
right after that, and
Yeah, and it
that
continued. It doesn't
yeah
stop. I mean,
doesn't stop.
this is crazy. I remember when Obama cried during a conference where he had to announce that one of the shooting had happened. I don't remember which one it was because there were so many. I remember him crying, the president of the United States saying, please, let me pass this legislation. We need to pass this legislation against gun violence. So Harry was right into that. And
Yeah,
it
he was into everything, But today, just right before we started this interview, the Supreme Court, I don't know if you heard, the Supreme Court passed a law that makes bumper stock guns legal. They
oh
don't
no,
they don't see that they should be illegal. They don't see that they're turned into assault rifles. That's not true. Even though they fire off 500 rounds, they turn a gun, instead of shooting one bullet, it's 500. It's insane that the Supreme Court can say that they're not harmful. That today.
they do. This Supreme Court, yesterday or 2 days ago, they said, okay, we can keep the pill for the abortion with the medication. We can keep that. And I thought, oh, thank God, maybe we're starting to change their mind. And now you're telling me this. I didn't hear it today.
This, I know. Yeah, it was,
It's
no, it
like,
just happened. Yeah,
that's,
it's shocking.
this
Yeah,
Supreme Court is really, we need to extend it so that there is not a majority of the people who have been appointed by Trump. Otherwise,
yeah.
I don't know how we're going to go about it. Another very important moment is when you go to film in Sing Sing, the Hudson Link program, and the guy who is in charge of the choir, he says at a certain point, also very emotionally, nearly in tears, saying, this man, Harry Belafonte, is coming to a prison and is giving us a voice, us who have never had a voice. Tell us a bit about that. Must have been an amazing moment.
Well, that interview was an amazing moment that still, just you bringing it up makes me cry. Joe, choir master Joe. Well, Harry Belafonte had started going to the prisons a long time ago. and he would come and speak. Sean Pika, who formerly incarcerated at Sing Sing, uh, is head of Hudson Link now, and he called up Harry to come and speak at the graduation, and he was expecting Sean. I mean, I'm just going to lead into Joe's
Yes.
story a little bit, and Sean Pika was given Harry's number and was expecting to get a secretary, but Harry actually answered the phone because that's what he did, and and so Harry said, "Of course I'll come." So that started many years ago, and Harry started bringing people to Sing Sing. He brought Warren Buffett, even he brought just you name it, Whoopi Goldberg, everybody came to speak at graduations and at other times too. And so Harry's dream was to start a choir in Sing Sing, and that's where I pick up the story because I made a little film about chain gang songs and Harry talking about them and saying that all black music was the music of protest. And the choir had started in Sing Sing, and they were going to have their first performance when I came to film. I spent a few days there before, and they were rehearsing a song called "Swing That Hammer" that you see earlier in the film, performed for Harry's birthday by Aloe Black. And so they sing "Swing That Hammer," and Joe, the choir master, had the lead voice in it, and he would sing all hunched over, and it was, a song of oppression and repression to him. And then I had him sit, and I did something very illegal, but there was one guard who was kind enough to take me into a place that we were never supposed to be, and to hand a laptop to Joe, who was not allowed to touch a laptop. And I didn't want to get anybody in trouble, but we managed it. And Joe watches this little 2-minute film, and when he hears that it's a music of protest, he closes at the end of it. He closes the laptop, and he said, "Protest. I never thought of it that way." And so then, when you do see him singing the song, he's upright and he's strong. But after he sings, he talks about what it meant for Harry to come there. And he said, "I speak the way I speak because of Harry Belafonte. I think the way I think now because what Harry Belafonte gave me. And he has given us a voice that we've never had before. And I am forever grateful. I'm forever grateful. We stand on your shoulders and the shoulders of so many that you have brought to us. And I'm forever grateful." And then he turns away, and then he turns back and he goes, "And thank you. Thank you, Harry." And that's a killer. Yeah. But you see the effect that it we just all need to be seen. We need to be heard. We need to be encouraged. We need to know that our life means something, that we are valuable. We are all valuable. And even though you're incarcerated for decades, these men have been in there their whole lives. They go in as children and they never really mature. They go in as children, 14, 15, 17, 19, and now they're in their 50s, and they never been out of that. But Harry would bring in light. He'd bring in that light. So it was very important to me to have that story in there. It really was. Yeah.
It is absolutely an impactful story. I mean, the whole movie is amazing. It's one impactful thing after the next. There isn't one moment in which you can just turn your head because
Oh, thank you so much because I have not shown it to an audience. This is my first audience screening. I didn't do any test screenings. I didn't want a million opinions on this. I had this idea, and Harry and I had an idea, and then I, took it over completely, and it just had to be this. It had to be this. I'm sure there are a million other ways I could have done it that would have been better, would have been different, but I wanted to do this. And then I thought, uh-oh, you know.
So
Did
I'm
I
your
did I
test
did
screener.
I dig my heels in too much on this one? So
No,
so thank you, because I feel less terrified about tonight, because there are 500 people. It's sold out.
I'm
500
gonna
people are
be
going to
there.
be. You will.
I'm gonna be there. I'm not
Thank you.
missing
Thank you.
not missing anything that has to do with Harry.
Yeah.
No way. So I've been your test screener.
Yeah, thank you. I feel this was, can I take you out to lunch? You know, this was so great. This was so great.
We will be friends. We're gonna be friends. When I see you tonight,
Yeah,
I'll be happy to hug you.
please hug me. Because I want to hug you. So
Okay, so let's keep you on the message that you want people to get from this movie and where you want this movie to go.
okay, the message I want is Harry's last message, which is, I've left you a trail, pick it up. If not, bring something better. Bring something better. Don't sleep through this moment in time, because this will alter history. We're in a history altering moment in the most severe and negative way and terrifying way. And if you are not terrified, you have to be terrified. You have to be terrified now. Not to the point of paralysis. Know that there are people out there fighting, and you'll see them in the film, and you'll meet them tonight on the stage. And they're people that you don't even know about. They're people that I wished I could have talked about in the film, because I have filmed them, who are not going to be at the screening tonight because they're in Atlanta, they're in St. Louis, they're in every part of the country, in Birmingham, fighting this very moment to make sure that November, it doesn't turn out the way it could so easily turn out. And so, whatever you feel about, democracy sucks, capitalism, all of that, it's not the best system. But the lesson I learned from Harry, many lessons, but this one, he said, when during the civil rights movement, the Kennedys, and you can see it in Sing Your Song, the Kennedys were not supporting Martin Luther King. They were not supporting civil rights. They didn't get it. He said, but we marched in, he, Lorraine Hansberry, the whole crew of them marched into Bobby Kennedy's office. And you make your politicians do what you need them to do. You have the power to do that. You don't like Biden? Get in there and make him do what you want him to do. But you put someone like Trump in, you don't get anywhere near him. It's over. It's over. You have to understand that you're not going to have a revolution. It's over. And so I just understand that. And Harry talks about that very clearly. And he talks about it. The whole last chapter of the film is about that in such a clear way, about how we all, he says early in the film, he said, all we really want to do is enjoy the universe. That's
Yes.
all we really want to do. That's what we all really want to do. And it's oppression that keeps you from doing that. And so you cannot allow oppression in. You have to fight, he says, oppression. It's only love that will drive out oppression. And love has a very big meaning. It's a big deal. And that's what we have to do. So that's my final, those are my 8,000 final words. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am
Okay.
thrilled that you gave me this precious pearl.
Thank you. Thank you for wanting to take the time. And thank you for making me feel so much better now. I can feel my temperature is lowered a little bit. I don't usually
Good.
panic, but I was my version of panicking. So I feel, so thank you for the gift.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy I could do that. It was easy because this is amazing. So you've done
Oh,
a
thank you.
masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's Harry, I wouldn't say it was easy, but he certainly, with documentaries, you have to cast your documentary well. And I had the primo. You don't get better than Harry
The
Belafonte.
primo uomo, not the prima
Yeah,
donna.
the primo uomo. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm going to use that. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much again. Bye-bye. And
Bye.
bye to my viewers of My Harlem Portraits.